Stephen King's Pet Sematary explores the harsh truth of grief, loss, and the human desire to undo what cannot be undone. Both the original 1989 film and the 2019 remake bring this unnerving tale to life, each with its own unique flair. This video will delve into the psychological underpinnings of each movie, assess how they handle the source material, and explore their construction of a terrifying atmosphere. At the heart of Pet Sematary is the Creed family who move to a small town in Maine and discover a mysterious graveyard behind their new home. This seemingly ordinary place has the power to bring back the dead, but at an appalling cost. When tragedy strikes, they come to realize that death might be less horrifying. The 1989 version of Pet Sematary, directed by Mary Lambert, remains a cult classic for its faithful adaptation of King's novel and its eerie ambience. The film portrays both the inevitable nature of death and the terrifying consequences of attempting to interfere with it. In 2019, Kevin Kulsh and Dennis Widmeyer presented a modern reinterpretation with improved visuals and significant plot changes. Their goal was to introduce this bone-chilling story to a new audience while providing unexpected twists and turns fans familiar with the original could enjoy. Both versions plunge into the deep psychological pit of grief, fear of loss, and the extreme measures one might take to avoid accepting death's finality. Grief plays a pivotal role in both films. It pushes characters toward irrational and dangerous decisions. The portrayal of grief in Pet Sematary is raw. It shows how losing someone close can push one toward drastic measures. In Lambert's 1989 version, Louis Creed's grief is palpable and shattering. His descent into madness appears unavoidable as his initial skepticism about the cemetery's powers gradually morphs into desperate hope before ultimately plummeting into horror. The 2019 remake delves further into the psychological dimensions of grief, focusing more on the emotional turmoil of Louis and Rachel Creed. It explores Rachel's past trauma and her fear of death, adding a layer to her character that was less pronounced in the original. Both films tap into the inherent fear of the unknown and unnatural. The cemetery, with its bizarre powers, represents the ultimate unknown, death's domain and what might exist beyond it. The original film uses traditional horror techniques, gothic elements, and atmospheric tension. The unknown is depicted through a sinister forest and an ancient burial ground draped in mystery and apprehension. The remake intensifies this fear with explicit visuals and a modern horror aesthetic. It presents the burial ground in more stark detail, underscoring its otherworldly nature. Pet Sematary examines human nature at its most fundamental level, how far one might go to undo an unchangeable loss. In both films, the characters are driven by desperation to use the burial ground, despite their understanding of its dreadful consequences. The original portrays this desperation as tragically inevitable. Louis's actions are fueled by profound loss and guilt, and I found his plunge into madness both relatable and horrifying. The remake effectively portrays the characters' desperation through a faster pace, mirroring their tumultuous emotions. Louis's actions become increasingly frantic to echo his escalating grief. Both films employ unique cinematic techniques to cultivate an ambience of fear and apprehension, each successful in its distinctive way. The original Pet Sematary uses traditional horror aesthetics, including dim lighting, shadowy figures, and a subdued color scheme to provoke discomfort. Its cinematography emphasizes the confining interiors of the Creed house and the oppressive forest and burial ground. The film's authenticity and horror allure are heightened by practical effects and the sparing use of CGI. In contrast, the remake leverages modern cinematographic methods for a sleeker, visually captivating style. Dynamic camera angles, stark contrasts, and enhanced special effects all contribute to a visually stimulating yet petrifying experience. Thanks to a substantial budget, the production was able to create elaborate set designs and seamlessly integrate CGI to enhance the supernatural elements of the story. The original film's sound design is understated but impactful, featuring a chilling score by Elliot Goldenthal that complements the movie's solemn tone. Ambient sounds like rustling leaves and distant animal noises contribute to an immersive atmosphere without overshadowing the storyline. On the other hand, the remake showcases more intense contemporary sound design with Christopher Young's score, merging classic horror themes with modern elements. Sudden jarring noises coupled with unnerving silence intensify dread levels, This pronounced sound design significantly amplifies the overall tension and drama of the film. Lambert's film adopts a slow-burn strategy, allowing tension and horror to gradually build up over time. This pacing facilitates an in-depth examination of the characters' emotional journeys, making their eventual fate more shattering. The narrative structure closely aligns with King's novel, preserving key story elements and themes. Conversely, the remake favors a brisk pace, reflecting today's preference for immediate scares and high-intensity sequences. Despite offering fresh plot twists that surprise viewers, this accelerated pace sometimes compromises character development for suspense or shock factor. Actors' performances in both versions contribute significantly to their psychological depth and emotional resonance. Dale Midkiff effectively portrays Louis Creed's slow descent into madness. His nuanced performance allows Louis's mental deterioration to unfold gradually, making his final choices more poignant. Jason Clarke delivers an emotionally charged portrayal of Louis Creed, emphasizing the character's internal struggle and mental breakdown. Clarke's ability to convey raw emotion and desperation adds an extra dimension to Louis, making his tumble into insanity feel more immediate. In the original, Denise Crosby embodies Rachel Creed as a resilient character wrestling with past traumas, while attempting to maintain normalcy amidst escalating terror. Her nuanced performance enhances the character's depth, making her final moments resonate deeply. Amy Seimetz presents Rachel Creed in the remake with amplified vulnerability and fear. She explores deeper into Rachel's psychological scars and death anxiety. Seimetz's knack for balancing strength and fragility adds complexity to Rachel, rendering her character development more emotionally stirring. Fred Gwynn's portrayal of Judd Crandall is a highlight of the original film. His acting skillfully balances affability and wisdom with an underlying sense of foreboding. Gwynn's relatable charm renders Judd a sympathetic yet doomed figure, haunted by guilt and premonition. John Lithgow offers a distinct interpretation of Judd Crandall's character in the remake. He gives a more somber and seasoned performance that reveals a man burdened by the secrets he carries. Lithgow's acting lends gravitas and melancholy to Judd, crafting him as a complexly layered character fraught with troubles. Both versions of Pet Sematary delve into the human struggle of facing sorrow, death, and our futile attempts to control the unpredictable. The use of symbolism in each film accentuates these themes, enriching the narrative. The core theme of Pet Sematary is the harsh truth of death and the consequences of attempting to defy it. Both movies employ the burial ground as a symbol of prohibited territory and unnatural cravings, a representation of humanity's impulse to reverse the irreversible. In the 1989 adaptation, the burial ground serves as a caution against interfering with natural laws. The revived beings emerge as distorted, evil counterparts of their previous selves, emphasizing that certain boundaries should remain untouched. The 2019 revision heightens this portrayal by emphasizing the destructive power of the burial ground and its capacity to corrupt. The resurrected beings are monstrous exaggerations depicting grotesque results when one attempts to outwit death. This depiction adds a raw touch to the theme of inevitability. Both adaptations also explore how trauma affects characters like Rachel's childhood memories and Louis's sorrow following his son's demise. In the initial film, Rachel's trauma is subtly suggested through flashbacks and her dread of death. Her sister Zelda's representation adds a terrifying aspect to her recollections, highlighting trauma's enduring impact. The remake delves further into Rachel's psychological scars, providing more context and depth to her anxieties. Zelda is depicted even more horrifically in this version, mirroring Rachel's unresolved guilt and trauma. This emphasis magnifies the emotional weight of Rachel's character progression. The perversion of innocence is another significant theme in both films, demonstrated through the Creed children's tragic destinies. In the 1989 version, Gage's resurrection epitomizes innocence corrupted at its zenith. His transformation from an innocent child into an evil being underlines defying death's horror. The remake shifts focus, concentrating on Ellie's resurrection instead of Gage's. This shift allows for a more nuanced exploration of lost innocence. Ellie's transformation and its psychological impact on her family highlight the disastrous consequences of tampering with nature's sequence. Both versions of Pet Sematary offer unique interpretations of Stephen King's eerie tale, delving into grief, loss, and human endeavors to control the uncontrollable. The original film, with its gradual pace and gothic atmosphere, has become a cult classic that encapsulates the story's tragic inevitability. The remake offers a contemporary perspective on the narrative for today's audience, intensely focusing on psychological elements. Both films effectively showcase Pet Sematary's central themes, using varied cinematic tools and performances to craft an ambience of unyielding dread. Whether one prefers the timeless horror of the 1989 version or the contemporary intensity of the 2019 revision, both adaptations offer a chilling examination of humanity's darker facets and the horrifying aftermath of defying death. Pet Sematary remains a powerful narrative that continues to resonate with viewers, reminding us that sometimes dead is indeed better. Pet Sematary is an amazing read, and both movies are gems of equal facets. I highly recommend both versions. The original is a fantasy horror mystery that is 1 hour and 43 minutes long. It is rated R. The remake is a horror mystery thriller that is 1 hour and 40 minutes. It is also rated R. The Southern Underworld gives both versions 5 bloody knives. In 1992, Mary Lambert took the director's helm for Pet Sematary II, a sequel that delves into the spine-chilling lore of Stephen King's horror universe. The film grapples with profound themes such as loss, vengeance, and paranormal occurrences. Despite often being overshadowed by its predecessor, this movie holds its ground as a chilling exploration of human psychology and the repercussions of tampering with nature. The narrative brings us back to Ludlow, Maine, a quaint town perpetually haunted by the ominous presence of the accursed burial ground known as Pet Sematary. This bleak and foreboding location plays a pivotal role in establishing the film's mood. At its heart, Pet Sematary II probes our fundamental fear of death and uncertainty. The unsettling concept that a graveyard can resurrect those who have passed away stirs up profound fears about mortality and life after death. The image of the resurrected dead in the movie is a poignant symbol of how fragile life truly is. The movie scrutinizes how grief impacts our mental state and to what lengths individuals might go to reclaim their departed loved ones. This theme is personified through the characters' experiences at the cursed cemetery as they grapple with immense sorrow over their loved ones' deaths and their desperate longing for rebirth. Pet Sematary II acts as a cautionary tale against breaching nature's laws. The psychological horror stems from recognizing that certain rules should not be transgressed, and reviving the dead unleashes unpredictable and horrifying consequences. Each character in the film faces their own unique challenges and internal turmoil. Their respective journeys underscore themes of loss, revenge, and corruption due to supernatural influences. Edward Furlong portrays Jeff Matthews, a teen wrestling with his mother's recent passing. His grief-induced rage propels him to unearth Pet Sematary's sinister secrets, finding solace in its prohibited power. His arc illuminates how grief can distort judgment, leading to destructive choices. Anthony Edwards plays Chase Matthews, Jeff's father, who is struggling with the death of his wife. Chase's resolve to shield his son and unravel the mystery of Pet Sematary injects suspense into the narrative. Clancy Brown delivers a chilling performance as Gus Gilbert, the harsh stepfather. Gus becomes an instrument for manifesting Pet Sematary's dark force, epitomizing the corrupting effect of supernatural entities. Pet Sematary II employs various film techniques to instill a sense of perpetual fear and terror. From its visual aesthetics to its sound design, viewers are plunged into a world where life and death teeter on the edge. Russell Carpenter directs the film's cinematography, capturing Ludlow's grim ambiance using subdued colors, shadows, and stark contrasts. The Pet Sematary set is meticulously crafted to convey a feeling of ancient evil and decay. The sound design of the film is crucial in building tension, using ambient noises like rustling leaves and animal calls in the distance to create an unsettling auditory atmosphere that keeps viewers on edge. Mark Governor's eerie score enhances the movie's menacing tone. The music oscillates between melancholic and frenzied sections reflecting characters' emotional turmoil while amplifying the impending sense of doom. Pet Sematary II is a cinematic exploration of the darker aspects of human emotions, particularly grief and loss. The film explores the extremes people might resort to in an attempt to alleviate the anguish of losing a loved one. The characters' interactions with the Pet Sematary underscore their desperate quest to fill the void left by death. The movie further dissects various stages of grief, primarily denial and acceptance. Characters' unwillingness to accept the finality of death leads them down perilous routes. The film investigates the corrupting influence of power. The sinister force residing in the burial ground serves as a symbol of corruption and a cautionary tale against disturbing nature's delicate balance. Despite the terrible consequences that come with it, characters are drawn to this forbidden power, revealing the moral compromises they must make in their journey. Additionally, Pet Sematary II highlights the delicacy of sanity, an essential component for comprehending its psychological impact on audiences. The horrors concealed within the burial ground drive characters toward insanity, evident in Gus's transformation and Jeff's battle against his grief. Adding another layer to this complexity is how the film blurs boundaries between reality and supernatural phenomena, testing the character's understanding of what's real or illusionary. This ambiguity amplifies psychological tension within the movie. The performances in Pet Sematary II enrich its depth and tension. For example, Edward Furlong's portrayal of Jeff Matthews contributes emotional depth through his expression of diverse emotions, such as grief and vulnerability, while Anthony Edwards' depiction of Chase Matthews intensifies tension through his display of desperation and determination. Clancy Brown's performance as Gus Gilbert leaves a lasting impression on viewers, with his transition from an austere authority figure into an evil entity, underlining the psychological implications of power. This film successfully merges elements of horror with a psychological thriller, creating an ambiance riddled with fear and suspense, largely due to Mary Lambert's direction, special effects, and a haunting music score. The film's examination of themes like grief, the corrupting influence of power, and sanity's fragility resonates with contemporary issues surrounding human nature and mental health. Its psychological terror is anchored in primal fears regarding death, unknown forces, and the aftermath of defying natural laws. As a spine-chilling yet intellectually stimulating addition to the horror genre, Pet Sematary II continues to captivate audiences while igniting conversations about fear and the human psyche. Its reputation as a cult classic underscores its enduring impact on viewers. For those brave enough to confront the horrors of Ludlow's Pet Sematary II offers a memorable journey into the abyss of human terror and the consequences of meddling with nature's balance. Pet Sematary II is a fantasy horror thriller that is 1 hour and 40 minutes long and is rated R. The Southern Underworld gives it 4.5 bloody knives. In 2023, the cinematic world braced for the chilling resurgence of Stephen King's Pet Sematary in the form of Pet Sematary: Bloodlines. This prequel to the 2019 adaptation resuscitates the grim and twisted universe first conceived by King in his 1983 novel. For franchise enthusiasts, Bloodlines not only broadens the original narrative, but also delves into a profound psychological examination of the malevolent forces concealed beneath an idyllic small town's facade. This installment pays homage to its predecessors while enriching the lore, inviting audiences on a spine-tingling expedition into Pet Sematary's evil roots. We find ourselves once again in Ludlow, Maine, a town that has always seemed too serene. The story takes place in the early 1960s, delving into the disturbing past of both the Pet Sematary and its neighboring lands, where decay lingers and death is ever present. What sets this film apart within the Pet Sematary franchise is its ability to craft a narrative that feels fresh, yet uncannily familiar. Under the skillful direction of Lindsay Anderson Beer, the decaying beauty of Maine's woods is captured in every scene, creating a sense of impending danger throughout. The cinematography is rich yet suffocating. Fog-drenched forests and darkened skies encroach upon the characters, creating a claustrophobic ambiance reflecting their psychological torment. The storyline follows a young Judd Crandall, whom franchise fans will recognize as the sagacious elderly neighbor from the previous films. Here, he stands at the precipice of understanding his hometown's dark secrets and the sinister power residing beyond Pet Sematary's borders. As Judd investigates this mystery, he unravels a history of mortality and rebirth that spans multiple generations, a chilling cycle that puts anyone who dares to confront it in grave danger. At its essence, Pet Sematary, Bloodlines is an exploration of grief, loss, and the desperate lengths people will go to in order to defy death. This introspection into the human psyche distinguishes the Pet Sematary series from other horror franchises, with Bloodlines being no exception. The film doesn't shy away from confronting mortality's uncomfortable truths and humanity's desire to reverse the irreversible. It portrays death as both a natural conclusion and an unnatural force that yields horrifying consequences when meddled with. The characters in Bloodlines are tormented not only by their actions' physical manifestations, but also by the psychological burden of their choices. The Pet Sematary itself morphs into a symbol of temptation, a place where impossibilities become achievable at a great cost. This temptation is embodied by the ancient Wendigo spirit hovering over the burial ground, a malevolent entity preying on those who venture too close. The Wendigo is more than just mythical folklore. It symbolizes humanity's darker side, the part that lusts for dominion over life and death, regardless of the repercussions. As the narrative unfolds, Judd and his companions grapple with their personal demons, each affected by loss in ways that compel them toward Pet Sematary's forbidden power. This exploration of grief is raw and relentless, forcing audiences to confront their apprehensions about death and what lies beyond. The film's psychological depth is further amplified by its focus on ancestral guilt, the notion that past sins can shape present realities. Ludlow's inhabitants bear the weight of their predecessors' actions, ensnared in a cycle of violence and despair seemingly impossible to escape. Pet Sematary, Bloodlines pays homage to the classic elements of horror that are cherished by fans of the franchise, but it also presents new and unique elements that set it apart within the genre. One of the film's most intriguing features is its use of non-linear storytelling, allowing for a more profound exploration of the town's dark history and the generational trauma plaguing its residents. This narrative structure induces disorientation and unease, mirroring the characters' confusion and fear as they uncover Pet Sematary's truth. The film also shines in character development, presenting a cast of complex individuals each drawn to Pet Sematary for their unique reasons. Unlike previous entries in the franchise that primarily focused on undead horror, Bloodlines delves deeper into the psychological horror, accompanying knowledge of the undead. The characters are not merely victims, but active participants in their downfall, motivated by a tangled web of emotions including love, guilt, and desperation. Another standout feature of Bloodlines is its use of practical effects to create a tangible horror experience. The resurrected dead are portrayed not as mindless zombies, but as distorted versions of their former selves, both body and soul corrupted by the evil force that revived them. The makeup and special effects are gruesome, yet unsettling, adding a layer of physical horror that complements the film's psychological themes. The film's sound design utilizes eerie silence and abrupt jarring noises to keep the audience perpetually on edge. Pet Sematary Bloodlines distinguishes itself through its dedication to cultivating an atmosphere of suspense rather than relying on fleeting frights. The film's methodical pacing allows for a pervasive sense of unease that permeates each scene. This technique stands in contrast to the shock-centric strategies employed by many contemporary horror films, fostering a fear that grows gradually and naturally. The result is a cinematic experience that feels both classic and current, echoing the timeless horror films of the 1970s and 80s. The town of Ludlow evolves into a character within the narrative, its eerie forests and mist-enshrouded routes acting as tangible representations of the terror and uncertainty plaguing the characters. The Pet Sematary is portrayed as a quiet location where the laws of nature are manipulated by inexplicable forces. The pacing of the film is strategic, with each scene carefully crafted to build tension and anticipation. Through skillful use of shadows and darkness, viewers are made to feel trapped and disoriented, reflecting the character's descent into madness. The cinematography expertly contrasts the stunning beauty of Maine's landscapes with the terror lurking beneath, creating visuals that are both breathtaking and spine-chilling. Additionally, there is a noticeable shift in color tones throughout the film. Warm autumn hues in the beginning give way to cold, desaturated shades as the character's journey from innocence to horror unfolds. The performances in Pet Sematary Bloodlines are consistently impressive, with each actor infusing their roles with complexity. Jackson White excels as young Judd Crandall, authentically portraying his curiosity, fear, and resolve. He creates a relatable and empathetic character, a young man torn between his quest for truth and the terror of what he might discover. White's performance is grounded and genuine, allowing audiences to emotionally connect with Judd, even as his decisions lead him toward darkness. Natalie Alyn Lind plays Norma, Judd's love interest. Her character is propelled by personal loss and grief, and Lind captures the anguish and desire driving her actions. The chemistry between White and Lind is palpable, adding an emotional depth that amplifies the horror's impact. Pet Sematary Bloodlines pays tribute to its origins, while also carving out its unique niche within the franchise. This new installment of the series will please its devoted followers by exploring the deep-rooted mythology that has made Pet Sematary a timeless masterpiece. At the same time, it presents a novel approach to horror that will captivate both newcomers and dedicated fans alike. The film's exploration of grief and loss is both poignant and horrifying, compelling viewers to confront their fears about death and the beyond. Its psychological depth sets it apart from other horror films, offering an insightful take on the genre that stimulates thought while terrifying viewers. The use of practical effects coupled with atmospheric tension creates an immersive horror experience. Pet Sematary Bloodlines is a commendable addition to the Pet Sematary franchise. It presents a fresh perspective on horror that is both terrifying and thought-provoking. The film respects its origins while expanding the scope of what horror can encompass, offering a unique exploration of grief, loss, and mankind's defiance of death. Prequels can either enhance our understanding of a series or leave us more confused than before. Pet Sematary Bloodlines was a fantastic contribution to this well-loved film franchise, shedding light on many unanswered questions from the previous movies and bringing the series full circle. Whether you're a franchise fan or newcomer, Bloodlines leaves an indelible mark, a chilling reminder of the terrors lurking beneath the familiar and known. Pet Sematary Bloodlines is a fantasy horror that is 1 hour and 27 minutes long and is rated R. The Southern Underworld gives it 5 bloody knives.